Alhamdulillah, we are at Surah Kahfi. Surah Kahfi, first introduction here. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. This is a 69 surah revealed in Makkah. It contains 110 verses. Verses here. 110 verses. Most of us are quite familiar with Surah Kahfi. This surah was sent down in answer to the three questions which the mushriks of Mecca, in consultation with the people of the book, had put to Prophet ﷺ in order to test him. These were: who were the slippers of the cave? What is the real story of Khidir? And finally, what do you know about Zulqarnain? So there are differences of opinions. We will later on see another hadith, right, on the reasons why this surah was revealed. As these three questions and the stories involved concerning the history of the Christians and the Jews and were unknown in Hijaz, a choice of these was made to test whether the Prophet ﷺ possessed any source of the knowledge of the hidden and unseen things. So you can see that the stories that were asked of Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam are stories which are unknown to the Arabs. And there are stories which the Arabs know. For example, we have gone through many of the stories of the prophets and Nabi Lut, right? The Arabs know about it because they travel up north and they've heard stories of the people of Nabi Lut. They've got Nabi Shu'aib. Nabi Shu'aib is also north, near Aqaba, around their area. This Aqaba is near Jordan, north of Medina. The Arabs travel up north to Syria to do their business, to buy merchandise and to sell things also. And then we've got Nabi Saleh, also north of Medina. Then we've got the people of Ad, which is south of Medina, and that is in Yemen. Then we've got Egypt. The stories of Pharaoh was quite famous. It seems that that is why the stories are being told by in the Quran, and the Arabs saw it as stories of the ancient. And of course, Nabi Nuh, story of Nabi Nuh alayhi salam and the flood seems to be quite rampant. Everybody knows the story of Nabi Nuh and the flood. Seems many nations are aware of the story of Nabi Nuh and the flood. But three particular stories are not known to the Arabs. Basically, the story of the sleepers of the cave, the story of Nabi Khidir, that means Nabi Musa and Nabi Khidir, and finally the story of Zulqarnain. All right, we're going to go through those stories. Allah, however, not only gave a complete answer to their questions, but also employed the three stories to the disadvantage of the opponents of Islam in the conflict that was going on at the time at Mecca between Islam and unbelief. So Allah uses this story, right, to highlight various concepts that Rasulullah ﷺ has been teaching the people of Mecca. As we know, this is around the 11th year of Rasulullah's mission. There's 2 more years of mission in Mecca, and things were really bad. It's after the passing on of his beloved wife Khadija radiallahu anha, and his beloved uncle Abu Talib, who were 2 great supporters of him. And without these two support, right, things were really bad in Mecca. The questioners were told that the sleepers of the cave believed in the same doctrine of Tawheed, which was being put forth in the Quran, and that their condition was similar to the condition of the persecuted Muslims of Mecca. So there is a reflection there. On the other hand, the persecutors of the sleepers of the cave had behaved in the same way towards them as the disbelievers of Quraysh were behaving towards the Muslims. And so there were this group of disbelievers, the believers. The believers were always persecuted. The Quraysh would see themselves, right, in the face as the persecutors of the people of the cave. Besides this, the Muslims have been taught that even if a believer is persecuted by a cruel society, he should not bow down before falsehood, but immigrate from the place all alone, if need be, with trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not, of course, if there is a need to migrate, you migrate, move out, because you are being prevented from practicing the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course, you must travel out of your country with great trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Incidentally, the disbelievers of Mecca were told that the story of the sleepers of the cave was a clear proof of the creed of the hereafter, but this showed that Allah has the power to resurrect anyone He wills, even after a long sleep of death, as He did in case of the sleepers of the cave. Story of the slippers and the cave has also been used to warn the chiefs of Mecca who were persecuting the Muslim community. At the same time, the Holy Prophet ﷺ has been instructed that he should in no case make a compromise with the persecutors, nor should he consider them to be more important than his poor followers. There were moments where Rasulullah ﷺ were trying his very best to convert them, because it's already 11 years, it was very difficult. And he was hoping that some of the chiefs of the Quraysh would convert. Although he had a few, but he was hoping for others to actually convert and strengthen his cause, right? But he should not. He's been informed that he should not consider them as important, but turn to his followers. On the other hand, those chiefs have been admonished that they should not be puffed up with a transitory life of pleasure they were then enjoying, but should seek after those excellences which are permanent and eternal. So Khidir and Musa has been related in such a way as to supply this answer to the question of the disbelievers and to give comfort to the believers as well. The lesson contained in this story is this: you should have full faith in the wisdom of what is happening in the divine factory in accordance with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We will see that the story of Khidir and Musa alayhi salam, right, is based on various spiritual or hidden meanings that only Allah knows. As the reality is hidden from you, you are at a loss to understand the wisdom of what is happening. And sometimes if it appears that things are going against you, you cry out, how and why has this happened? So it's a lesson not to get upset when things happen in ways that you just don't understand, right? You must always remember that Allah is all wise and all knowing. The fact is that if the curtain be removed from the unseen, you would yourselves come to know what is happening here is for the best. Even if sometimes it appears that something is going against you, you will see that in the end, it also produces some good results for you. So you have to be patient, have to be rida, whatever happens along your way. The same is true of the story of Zulqarnain, for it also admonishes the questioners, as if to say, oh, you vain chiefs of Mecca, you should learn a lesson from Zulqarnain. Though he was a great ruler, a great conqueror, and the owner of great resources. He has everything that Allah has given him, so much. He says, whatever I have, right, is enough for me. Yet he always surrendered to his creator, whereas you are rebelling against him, even though you are insignificant chieftains in comparison with him. Just nothing compared to Zulqarnain. Besides this, though Zulqarnain built one of the strongest walls for protection, yet his real trust was in Allah and not in the wall. So we will come to that towards the end of the surah. He believed that the wall could protect him against his enemies as long as it was the will of Allah, and that there would be cracks and holes in it when it would be his will. Whereas you possess only insignificant fortified abodes and dwellings in comparison with him, consider yourself to be permanently safe and secure against all sorts of calamities. So there is a reflection there, right, of the beliefs of Zulqarnain. While the Quran turned the tables on the questioners who have tried to expose the Holy Prophet ﷺ, in the end of the surah, the same things have been reiterated that were stated at its beginning. Tawheed and the hereafter are absolutely true and real, and for your own good, you should accept these doctrines, mend your ways in accordance with them, and live in this world with this conviction that you are accountable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Tawheed is these are the two main objections of the Quraysh. The Quraysh just doesn't want to believe in Allah as the only God because they want to pay tribute to all the other gods which they had made become partners to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also, of course, they use the same story of that it is the forefathers who they have to follow their forefathers. Their forefathers can't be wrong, so they cannot go against, right, the teachings of their forefathers. And then, of course, the hereafter, they just doesn't like this idea that whatever they do, they will be accountable. They don't like this idea of them being raised up again, right, after death. They just want to die and that's it. Live and let live, die and that's it. You will just rot away. That is why they come up with all kinds of reasons on why they cannot be resurrected. So that's what it is, right? And Allah came back to them, right? Are absolutely true and real and for your own good. So we should move and remember that we have a hereafter. Whatever we do, we should we should try our very best to seek Allah's approval. Otherwise, you shall ruin your life and all your doing shall be set at naught. Nothing, emptiness. Hadith on Kahfi by Muslim. This is hadith number 7015. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, I harbor fear in regard to you in so many other things besides the Dajjal. So not only Rasulullah is fearful for us, right, of the Dajjal, but a lot of other things we have, he is also fearful for us. If he comes forth while I am among you, I shall contend with him on your behalf. But if he comes forth while I am not among you, a man must contend on his own behalf, and Allah will take care of every Muslim on my behalf. So this Dajjal will be coming for sure, right? And Rasulullah himself doesn't know when Dajjal is coming. And he said if it's coming, when he is around, then he would be there for us Muslims, right? As mentioned in a hadith that the coming of Rasulullah and the end of the world, it shows that the end of the world is coming. It's already 1,444 years, right, since Rasulullah's, since Hijrah. We're going to have our Muharram, first Muharram on Wednesday. So it's a long, 1,444. Well, people do believe that we will not see 1,500, Allah, in the Islamic calendar. The Dajjal will be a young man with twisted cropped hair and a blind eye. I compare him with Abdul Uzza ibn Qatan. It seems that somebody among the Arabs looked like Dajjal. He who among you will survive to see him should recite over him the opening verses of Surah Al-Kahfi. So we need to understand Surah Kahfi, relearn Surah Kahfi, read Surah Kahfi, so that, and try to memorize at least the opening verse of Surah Kahfi. Inshallah, we will be saved. Allah will save us from the evils of Dajjal. He will appear on the way between Syria and Iraq and will spread mischief right and left. That's the area, right? We are aware of that area, Syria and Iraq, right? And, O slave of Allah, adhere to the path of truth. So that is the advice of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam on all of us, is to keep to the path of truth. Related by Abu Umama al-Bahili, whoever enters the Dajjal's hell, let him seek refuge with Allah and recite the opening verse of Surah Al-Kahfi, and it will become cool and peaceful for him as the fire became cool and peaceful for Ibrahim alayhi salam. So we can see the importance of the Surah Kahfi, the opening verses of Surah Kahfi, and we should be aware of it and memorize it. Imam Ahmad recorded that Al-Bara said, a man recited Al-Kahfi and there was an animal in the house which began acting in a nervous manner. He looked and saw a fog or cloud overhead. He mentioned this to Rasulullah SAW, who said, keep on reciting, for this is a tranquility which depends when one reads Quran. So it is a great joy. So in this case, in a particular case, it was Kahfi. But whatever you read of the Quran, of the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is tranquility that will descend on you, right? And so never deny yourself of this great tranquility. And Allah has blessed people who reads the Quran. That is why the Quran should be read every day, at least 10 minutes, at least 10 minutes. If possible, after every salat, 5 minutes. And inshallah, you should be able to complete the Quran maybe 5 times in a year, 6 times in a year, inshallah. In his Mustadrak, Al-Hakim recorded from Abu Sa'id that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever recites Kahfi, Surah Kahfi on Friday, it will illuminate him with light from one Friday to the next. That's the great reward. You are special beacons of light on earth when you recite Surah Al-Kahfi. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever reads Surah Kahfi on Friday, a light will shine for him, from beneath his feet to the clouds of the sky, which will shine for him on the day of resurrection, and he will be forgiven between the 2 Fridays. So great reward for reciting Surah Al-Kahfi. No doubt it's quite long, 110 verses, and for those who are not fluent in it, it'll take about maybe 40 minutes, But once you have that fluency, it should be about 17 minutes, because it covers almost a juz of the Quran, in the sense that it is halfway of juz 15, right? About, and then slightly more than halfway of juz 15, and it goes into juz 16, almost half also. So it's almost one juz of the Quran, inshallah. But with determination and with discipline, we continue reciting Surah Kahfi, and there's great rewards for us in this world and in the next world. Rasulullah SAW has said that whoever recites the surah will be protected from fitna for 8 days. Fitna for 8 days. That means they will not have, no evil will touch them for 8 days. If a person recites the last verse of Surah Al-Kahfi before sleeping at night, last verse only, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates a nur from his sleeping place up to the holy Kaaba. And in this light are angels who continually pray for the reciter until he wakes. What great reward is that? Right? From his, creates a nur from his sleeping place up to the holy Kaaba, subhanallah. And in this light are angels who constantly pray for the reciter until he wakes up. Every day, that's it. Right? Every day before sleep, recite just the last verse of Surah Kahfi. And we are blessed with this great, great light from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is narrated by Imam Ja'far radiallahu anhu as-Sadiq. We know Imam Ja'far is the great grandson of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If a person wishes to wake up at a particular time, he should recite the last ayah of the surah and then make the intention that he will wake up at a certain time and he will wake up at that time. So this is the great benefits of this surah. He, alayhi salam, also said that if a person recites the surah every Thursday night, he will die the death of a martyr. Who doesn't want to die the death of a martyr? Great rewards again. Keeping the surah in a house becomes a means of protection from poverty and death. So these are opinions of our the descendants of Rasulullah SAW, not attributed to Rasulullah SAW, but again, it might be also from Rasulullah SAW, because these descendants of Rasulullah SAW have special knowledge which others do not have, right? All right, we start off with the verses of Surah Kahfi. The words first, we're going to learn the words, quite a lot of words, because quite different words from whatever words that we have been learning all this while, all right? So the first verse, we have the word Iwaja, which means crookedness. We'll see why is it not, there's no tanwin here, right? And it is supposed to be an ism. Let's look out why it's an ism. Punishment, ba'san. This is definitely an ism and it is a nasab state, right? Ba'san, ba'isa is something evil, something terrible. Then you've got makithina from the word makatha. Makithin is a plural. The alif there tells us it is continuously abiding. All right. Then you've got bakhi'un. Again, the alif there tells us it is a noun, an ism, a killer. But this is Rafa state bakhi'un, right? Then you got atharihim, their footsteps. Athar, footsteps. Him, their footsteps. Bakhi'un, a killer. Atharihim, their footsteps. Asafan, in grief. In grief. All right, then we've got zinah. Zinah has another meaning, which means decoration. The people name Zainah. Zainah means decoration. Zain, decoration. Zaini, my decorations. All these are decorations. Sa'idan, soil. And then we've got juruzan, bare and dry. So these are the words that we have. We're going to go through them again. Iwajan, iwaja, crookedness. Ba'san, punishment. Makithina, abiders. Bakhi'un, a killer. Atharihim, their footsteps. Asafan, in grief. Zinatan, decoration. Sa'idan, soil. Juruzan, bare, dry. Go on to the first verse. All right. This surah pivots around 3 themes: purging faith of all false concepts, right, to remove all false concepts from our faith, to provide sound reasoning, and establish correct values on the basis of faith. Right, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahilladzi anzala ala abdihi al-kitaba wa lam yaj'al lahu iwaja. I think it's iwajan, but we read as iwaja because it's to stop here. All right, alhamdu. Right, we know the meaning of alhamdu, all praises. All praises. Lillah, to Allah, or belongs to Allah. Alladhi, who, referring to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is the one. Anzala, he sent down. Anzala means to send down one shot. Ala abdihi, on his slave. Allah is on, abad, abid is slave. He is his slave, referring to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Al-kitaba. So the kitab was sent down. So the kitab we see being nasab here with a fathah. Right? So the book is the one that is sent on his slave. Ala is huruf jar. So abdi here is in a jar state with a kasrah. Walam, and not yaj'allahu. Lam is huruf jazm. So yaj'al has a sukun here. Right? It is mudari and with a sukun, present future tense, but with a sukun because of the lam. And they have lam yalid, also sukun. So lam yaj'al wa lam yaj'al lahu, for in crookedness. It here referring to the book that was sent by sent to the slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he puts ja'ala has been put, made, right, place for it crookedness, and not walam yaj'al lahu iwajan, crookedness. And this is of course to emphasize it is a nasab. Nasab means it's got a fathah. Suppose you have fathah tying here, right? I'll check it out there. Iwajan, crookedness. All right. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praises himself. Teach us to praise him. Praise and thank. Alhamdu. Alhamdu contains alhamd. Alhamd ha comes from the where the ayn comes from. Ha. That's in place. Alhamdulillah. We are praising Allah. Allah teaches us to praise. Once I heard a scholar which mentions that this alhamd is actually the ultimate praise given to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the beginning when he creates all and everything. So it is that the ultimate praise, the ultimate thanks, right? We praise Allah and we thank him. We don't some people, we praise them, but we don't thank them because they are smart, they are this, we praise them, but we don't thank them. With Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we praise him and we thank him for what he is, for what he has done, for the creations and everything. We are grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alhamdulillah, it's for Allah. He is the one who sent down. So now we are praising him for sending down ala abdihi, on his slave, the book. So the praise, the thanks to Allah is because he sent the book to us. Anzala versus nazzala. We hear the word nazzala, like we've got in surah Nazzalul malaikatu wa nazzala means to send continuously, right? But anzala is to send once and for, right? So ala, upon, that means that is a ila is would be two, would imply a privilege. That means if it is sent to the prophet, but now it is sent on the prophet, right? On the prophet. Anzala, one shot, sent down. But we know the Quran comes in phases, right? It is not sent down once, right? Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Qadr, Inna anzalnahu laylatil qadr. So the anzala means Allah sent down, but laylatul qadr is when the whole of the Quran is sent down from the Loh Mahfuz to the Baitul Izzah. From the Baitul Izzah, which is the sky of the earth, right? It is slowly sent down. It is nazala, slowly sent down to Rasulullah. So this is the fact that the whole Quran was sent down to Rasulullah eventually. Ala abdihi, it is Allah on his slave, right? The book is the one that is sent. So ala abdi is brought down, is brought forward, right, to emphasize that the Quran is being sent on his slave. Right, so ala implies responsibility. So on means Rasulullah is given that responsibility to disseminate the Quran, not only to remind people via the Quran, but also to be the living Quran. So it is his responsibility, right, to live by the Quran. Ala abdihi. Rasulullah SAW was given the responsibility of the application of the message and its conveyance. Abdihi, his slave. Why not abdihu? Why he and not who? The pronunciation is smoother, right? So who is he? But he is also in Arabic is he. It's strange to say abdihu, doesn't sound so good, but it's abdihi, his slave, right? His slave, Rasulullah SAW, special name to Rasulullah SAW, to be called a slave of Allah is of the highest stage. Because when you are slave of Allah, he is your master, and nothing wrong with being a slave. Some people just doesn't like to be called a slave, and yet they live life being a slave of money, being a slave of their desires, being the slave of food, being a slave of position, being a slave of all kinds of things, but they don't want to be a slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The first object, the slave of Allah. The second object, the kitab. The direct object, ma'ful bihi. Right, as mentioned just now, is supposed to be anzal al-kitabah. Right, ala abdi. That means he sent down the book, but then Allah puts Rasulullah anzala ala abdihil kitaba. Then comes the book, right? So maf'ul bihi, it is usually answer question of what and who. Example, what did he send? What did he see? What did that? So what did he send? He sent the book. To whom? To Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Walam, and not yaj'al, he placed lahu, for it is the Quran, iwaja, any crookedness. You can see it's iwajan, right? Because it is a nasab. Nasab means you must be in a fathah. Say the ah sound is fathah, right? And it's two fathahs, fathatain. But when we recite the Quran, right, because it is the end of the verse, right, at the end of the verse, we actually make it into a single one with a lengthening. And that's why we say, وَلَمْ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ عِوَجًا. Right, so he explains to us, no crookedness in it. There's nothing that's wrong with the Quran. It's straight, it is direct. Wow, is it. Zamakhshari is one of the Mufassirin, and he tries to explain. He sees things, different scholars actually sees different use of the word wa. He says wa is in first and second sentence, two different ideas. Right? So first idea is that Allah sent down the Quran on the slave. And the second idea is that he did not put anything wrong in the Quran. There's nothing crooked about the Quran. Other opinion says wow al-haliyah, which means the sentence coming after it is an adverbial sentence. So wa is while, right? So that means there is a connection with what is being said of the Quran that was sent down to Rasulullah SAW, that it is not while there is no wrong in it. He does not put any wrong in it at all. There's no crookedness in it at all. So lam yaj'al lahu iwaja, lam did not makes yaj'al a past tense. The word yaj'al would really be yaj'alu. All right, that's mentioned. Lam is what we call huruf jazm, and makes, the lam actually, if they are saying here is that it makes a past tense, right? The word yaj'alu, right? Yaj'alu is when it's a past tense, right? When you say lam, it means that definitely. So in the Arab language, past tense doesn't mean it is a past, right? As we see that we look at past and future, present and future. Past is confirmed, definitely has happened, but the future is uncertain. So when the past is being used, it shows that there is definitely, there's no crookedness whatsoever in the Quran. But due to the word lam, it becomes jazm. That is, yaj'alu is not pronounced, but this only pronounced as yaj'al. As mentioned, that there's a little bit of grammar there. There's a little bit of usage of language. There's a little bit of emphasis, right? That guarantee that there is no crookedness in the Quran. He did not place iwaja. ouch, a deviation you can see. Example, a pillar which you might see leaning to the side. But iwaj, so instead of using ouch, it's all the same root word. Allah uses the iwaj. So all these words are very, very interesting to the Arabs where the Arabs are concerned. We are sure, we know that the Arabs has developed their language to a very high standard, right? And because they are into poetry, they are into prose, they are into lots of literary works, right? And when they look at when they hear the Quran and they hear the uses of their own words in very special instances, right, to convey very precise meaning, they are incapacitated. And that is why the Quran is known, is said, is a mu'jizat. A mu'jizat is anything that causes someone to be weakened or to be lost for words, to be speechless because of its greatness. Right? So of course it goes to miracles also, but in this case, it is just being incapacitated. When you see miracles happening in front of you, you're just lost for words, just astounded, right? So and you just cannot, just to know how to move about, right, in that state. So, Iwaj, of course, is an abstract deviation in ideas, beliefs, principles. So it's not it's not a concrete thing like a pillar, right? It's more abstract, right? Ideas, beliefs, principles, and stuff. So there is that element of iwaja to show the crookedness, right? Is in ideas, in beliefs, and principles. So the fa'il is he, Allah did not place any iwaj, right? Lahu, for it, who, the kitab, the book, and lahu is now, right? Walam yaj'al lahu iwaja. So the kitab does not have anything that is wrong in its ideas, beliefs, or principles. And you watch any deviation in the book, no contradictions in the Quran. Many people try to find contradictions in the Quran, right? They believe their Arabic is so good, but there is too much more to the language itself. There is also looking at the nuances, looking at the usage of it in the Arab world and everything that allows the words, right? That shows that there is no way the Quran has contradiction. Some people try to, argue with scholars. They couldn't, because the scholars point out to them, right, why it is not a contradiction. The word iwaj in context means deviation and crookedness. In Arabic, the term awaja is used for physical phenomenon, while the term iwaja is applied for non-physical phenomena. We've got that. The author of Tibian has applied the term awaj for human beings and the term iwaj for other than human beings. So we have explained that also. Allah praises His holy self at the beginning and end of matters. He is praised for sending His mighty book to His noble messenger, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the book without any contradictions. Right, so Allah praises Himself, praises His at the beginning and the end of it. So Alhamdulillah, الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب ولم يجعل له عوجا. The greatest blessing that Allah has granted His creatures is this great book, this great message, right, that allows people to attain great heights in this world. At the beginning of the surah, Allah the Pure has taught His slave how to praise Him and why to praise Him for His greatest bounty. He has pointed out that His most important bounty is the very Quran which He has revealed to His messenger, His slave, and it is the only cause of their salvation. Surah Kahf had begun with Allah's praise. And since praise and thanksgiving is usually for an important quality and a praiseworthy thing, here the holy verse has stated it for the revelation of the Quran, which is far from any crookedness and obliquity. So we praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Two reasons here we are given. Why? First, we praise Him because He sent it to His slave, right? And secondly, because there is no crookedness whatsoever in the Quran. Among all the surahs of the Quran, only the following surahs begin with the holy praise. All praise is only to Allah, three of which the speech is upon the creation of the world of existence. So Allah praises Him because of the creation of the world, right? Al-An'am, Saba, Fatir, and Kahfi are 4 surahs, right, in which then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins with Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. That's Fatih. That's Alham. Alham is another name for Surah Fatiha. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. We praise Allah because He is a sustainer of the worlds. So we talk about the worlds. So the first 3, right, mentioning about the world, and then in Surah Ham, training is spoken of, while here in this verse, the words are upon the heavenly book. Training, I'm not sure about training actually, what do you mean by training? But as we see, it's about training us to be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, for the fact that He sustains the whole world. So it's about the existence of Allah, the existence of the creation that exists because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But in Surah Kahfi here, we mentioned that we are the words are upon the heavenly book. But this particular verse, so as if existence and creation accompanied with the book of law are 2 wings for training the human beings. That's how they come to the conclusion, right? To be trained is to look around us, to look at the great creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to look at the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because the book of Allah contains the ayahs of Allah, the creation of Allah contains the ayahs of Allah that will train us to become true slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All right, let's go on to the next verse. Qayyiman from the qiyam. Qiyam is to be upright, straight, right? Qayyiman. And this is also in a nasab. And nasab, just now we have the iwajan, also nasab. A nasab we have those of you who are not familiar with grammar, really need to know a little bit of grammar so that as to appreciate more of the verses of the Quran. You can go through our lesson, Quran Make Easy. If you don't have the link, you can always get the link from us, inshallah. So it shows that there are many reasons why nasab is being used, and one of the uses of the nasab is to emphasize. And so it brings out the greatness of the thing, right? It shows you how great it is at Iwajan. No crookedness. Qayyiman, it is straight, right? Absolutely straight. Liyundhira, li is so that. Liyundhira, he wants. Now, he here, we would use the word he. We'll look at other translations. Sometimes it will be it, right? But it's Allah who wants. Rasulullah SAW, the he is Allah, Rasulullah SAW here. But the you can be an it, also referring to the Quran. The Quran itself wants, right? Ba'san shadidan. Ba's is punishment. We saw the word. Shadid is really, really terrible. So this is to warn of this ba'san shadidan. Now this ba'san shadidan is the thing that is being warned. People are warned of this. So this is in nasab. This is the object. Liyunzira, and li is huruf nasab. That is why we have a fathah here. That liyunzira, so he wants liyunzira ba'san shadidan min ladunhu, from himself. And min is from ladunhu himself, right? That is referring to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Punishment is from himself. Wa yubashira, and he gives good news. Bashir is good news. Bashira, to give good news. Al-mu'minin, the believers. Alladhina, those ya'maluna, they do. Amal here, amala, amal is to do. Ya is they, waw nun do. They do salihat, righteousness. And plural here. Alif ta means plural of the female. Female is salihah, right? That means tak marbuta. But this an alif ta, it shows it's plural, right? And it is nasab. And they do because it is something that's being done. And of course, this is a description of the amal itself. So the amal is not mentioned here because it's understood, right? When you do an amal. Right, so salihat is mentioned to emphasize the nature, to describe the nature of the amal. Qayyiman liyunzira ba'san shadidan min ladunhu wa yubashshiral mu'minina alladhina ya'maluna as-salihat. Anna, that lahum, for them, lahum is brought forward especially for them. Ajran hasana. Ajran is reward. Hasana is good, a goodly reward. Descriptive, describing the reward. Great, great, good reward. Rightly directing, so that's what straight as now. Right? We have different ways of looking at it. That he might give warning of severe punishment from him. So you got he here referring to Rasulullah Sallallahu, and the punishment is from Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. It's not from Rasulullah Sallallahu, and give good news to the believers who do good, that they shall have a good reward. قيما لينذر بأسا شديدا من لدنه. قيما, just be separate, right? It is describing the Quran. The Quran has no crookedness, and it is definitely straight and bringing us along the straight path. Qayyiman, that which corrects the deviated. The Quran made the deviated people upright. As Zamakhshari said, the Qayyiman is a hal, a state, right? Because you can see it is a nasab that tells you it's a state, the condition of the Quran. This is describing anzala, sending down of the Quran. The sending of the Quran is a means in which people who go by the Quran, right, will be going on path of being straight and not deviated. As the Quran is sent down, qayyiman, in a state of uprightness. As it was being sent down, is causing things to be upright. So that is the function of the Quran, is to cause people to be in an upright state. The concept of the Quran being straight is given first in the form of negating any possibility of distortion, that is iwajan there, and then reiterated in describing it as unerringly straight. There's no way there is any fault in it, right? And definitely it is straight. This makes for a very strong emphasis, right? And especially, and Allah emphasized it further with causing it to be in its nasab state. That shows the great emphasis on the Quran being not deviation, no deviation whatsoever, and uprighting all the time, right? Qayyiman, unerringly straight. No way is going to be crooked. Hence, the wow in walam yaj'al is an end, a separate idea. So again, we come back to the argument of scholars, right? The waj'allahu iwaja, the wow is about the Quran, the nature of the Quran. A different idea, because the first idea was it being sent down to Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Other grammarians says the Quran was sent down while it did not have any moral deviation placed in it, and its uprighting. So that's while and end. He sent it allowing to make things upright. Qayyiman. So this word qayyiman, which has been applied as an epithet for the Quran, is both an emphasis on the straightness and temperance of the Quran, which is free from any contradiction, and a hint to the eternity of this great book. So it reminds us, right, of the greatness of the book. Nothing, no years and years and years and years, non-Muslims have been trying to find ways and means to destroy the credibility of the Quran, but they were not able to, because Allah has sent it without any deviation and definitely straighting. It is upright, it is straight. There's nothing wrong with the Quran whatsoever. It is also an example for the protection of authenticities, the improvement of obliquities, guarding the divine ordinances and human beings' justice and excellence. So it helps, right? It protects people, it protects minds, it allows us to be authentic, it improves all things which are bad in us, it guards the divine ordinances, the rules and regulations of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, it allows human beings to be just and to achieve excellence that is by the way of the Quran. Qayyim, also guardian, right, is in fact a derivation of the guardianship of Allah, by which He is the protector. And I say, Ya Hayyu, Ya Qayyum. I say, Ya Hayyu, Ya Qayyum, Hayyu is the living, the Qayyum is the one who protects. Right? So it comes from, it is derived from the word Qayyim, as Qayyum, also a derivation of the guardianship of Allah, by which He is the protector and guardian of all existing things of the world. So Allah guards the Quran also. Liyundira, in order to warn. Ba'san shadidan, an intense war. Shadid ba's. Right? It is not normal. No B or N after liyundira. Right? It is instead of saying biba'shan shadidan, should be the way. It's a normal way of saying it. The B has been removed. This magnifies the object being discussed. It is so urgent that a huruf could not be placed next to the word, the verb ba'san shadidan. So liyundira, and liyundira supposed to be B, so that to warn with this, but the with is the removed, the ba is removed. So in Arabic usage, in Arabic language, right, structure, the removal of that shows that this warning is so severe, right? You better take heed of it. Is going to be a very, very severe punishment. And use of war, that means you're going to be attacked again and again and again and again. Min ladunhu, especially from Him. The Him is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That means from His presence. For none can punish as He punishes, and none is stronger or more reliable than Him, and none is fairer and more just than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He punishes out of His justice, and not because of vengeance or whatever. It is of His justice that that person deserves the punishment, for he has denounced the words of Allah, has denounced the right of Allah to be prayed to be accepted as the only God. وَيُبَشِّرَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ الَّذِينَ يَعْمَلُونَ الصَّالِحَاتِ. And He gives good news to the believers. Allah didn't use alladhina amanu. Sometimes in the Quran, Allah used alladhina amanu, ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. Right? Wasta'inu bis-sabri was-salah. It's alladhina amanu. There are many times which Allah actually uses the word alladhina amanu. But in this particular instant here, the good news is given to the mu'min. The mu'min means, it is what in Arabic it is a verb. Sorry, it is an ism. Right? Ism is plural, right? You can see yubashiru, yubashira, wa yubashira, and this one is a nasab because of the lead, so that he it continue from the previous liyundira. Li is huruf nasab, so yundira, the mudari is in its nasab state. I'm doing a little bit of grammar for those who are learning grammar, so that you keep on recalling these various grammatical items. Again, yubashira, again, to cause to bring good news. Again, it is in the nasab because of the li. Mu'minin, right, is the object. So the yanun here is nasab. The yanun can be nasab, or it can be jar. But this is nasab here because this is the object of the warning. So the mu'min, as mentioned, is an ism. Being an ism means you are at all times in a state of believing. If you are referred to alladhina amanu, because amanu is a verb, right, a fa'al, then there are times you might falter. Most of us are alladhina amanu. So we just dua that Allah include us among the mu'minin. We strive our best to be in a state of belief at all times, because Rasulullah has said that at the point is disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, at that point you are not a believer. If you're a true believer at all times, right, you would never, ever want to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All right. So the good news is for the believers. Those, and there is a qualification here. Allah qualifies who are the believers. The believers, they must do salihat. Salihat are righteous acts. And salihat are acts that are according to the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and also it must be done sincerely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All right, so there's a condition for the believers, right? As-salihat, feminine, minimum, plural. Some grammarians says 10 or less. So in the Arabic language, again, there are plurals which are small plurals and big plurals. You got minimum plurals, maximum plurals. So this one is not so much. So it actually gives us that kind of graciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Make us understand the graciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because despite the fact that our actions are not really a lot, right, He would give us this good news. What is important? A strong, fixed belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah mentioned as salihat, which means that Allah doesn't expect that we do an endless amount of good deeds, but He expects that we do some good deeds. This is an extreme mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Salaha, to reconcile and correct something negative into positive. So basically, all our actions help to improve ourselves also. That's the meaning of salih, right? To correct, right? To reform, right? To change, right? To cause ourselves to become a better Muslim with every single act that we do, every single act that really brings us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Thus, doing a good deed replaces a bad deed. There's another one way of looking at it, right? Every time a good deed is done, a bad deed is removed. A bad deed is removed. Right? As human beings, we are not definitely completely sinless. At times we do fall into sin, and we do accidentally sometimes, right? And we slip because of temptations and things like that. Not that we purposely want to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It could have been salihat, good deeds, but Allah says as-salihat, the good deeds. All right, now here now is looking at the grammar in itself. Now, why not just salihat without the al? If the al, then is specific. Whereas if we put salihat only without the al, then it's non-specific. That means it's just a lot of deeds, not a specific kind of deed. These deeds are specific. Allah has legislated. So it shows us that there are only particular deeds that are known as salihat. Only deeds that Allah has legislated. Because sometimes there are translation, in fact, has caused quite some misinterpretations by people when they translate salihat as good deeds. Believe and have ya ayyuhalladhina amanu wa amilus salihat, all those who believe and do amal salih. This is translated as do good deeds. So she said, I believe in Allah, I'm a good. But what is a good deed? No, it is not just any good deed. It is a deed that is legislated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, taught by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we don't determine the morality based on our intellect alone. Rather, our good is based on what Allah has legislated, even if we cannot comprehend its wisdom. That is why we have misunderstandings, right, with the non-believers. Like, for example, the father of Abu Bakr doesn't understand. He was blind. He didn't understand why Abu Bakr, he heard that because he didn't see why Abu Bakr is wasting money in freeing the slaves. And that's why Abu Bakr did a lot, did buy up the slaves. Nothing wrong with freeing slaves. But in this case, he buys slaves. The slaves that he bought are the slaves that has been tortured. So where people are concerned, right, it's just a waste of money because these slaves have been tortured and they can't really do much work because of the fact that they have been, abused, and they are not as strong, as powerful, strong slaves. So the mother was not Muslim. Why you want to waste your money on that? Buy strong slaves and you can have them to do work for you. So it's just, you don't understand why you are doing these things. And like in Surah Yasin, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks people to spend. So when they are asked to spend of their money, they say, why should we feed those whom if Allah wish He would feed? That means feeding of people should be Allah. Allah is a God. He feed them. Why should we be feeding them? So they just don't understand that kind of doing that kind of amal saleh to feed the poor, amal saleh of freeing the slave, amal saleh of protecting the weaker ones. All these are not understood by the people of Mecca and the Quraysh, the disbelievers of the Quraysh. Anna lahum ajran hasana. Anna is definitely is an emphasis that for surely for them, especially for them, that for them ajran hasana, a good reward. they will get this good reward. And ajran is what we call nakira because there's no al. So the descriptive, both of them must be in the same state, both are singular and both are in nasab state, because ajran hasana. For them especially, this is great, 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 immense reward. Anna, that, producing a conclusion. That is the result. Just check a little bit. Sometimes in I tend to put that. So I'm like that. Sometimes I tend to put surely. It's a mistake sometimes that. So it's anna, it actually means that, right? Producing a conclusion because you are able to, you did this, you are a strong believer in Allah, and you did amal salih, then for you, for them, these are the ones, for them especially. So the lahum is brought forward, right, to show that especially for them, create reward. Should be normally written as anna ajran hasana lahum. It's the normal way of writing, but Allah changes it around, right, to emphasize that those people will be blessed with reward. However, the lahum is placed earlier in the sentence structure for the following reasons. The sentence should not start with a nakira. So the reason this is a nakira, right? The anna is an emphasis, right? It's not part of the sentence. It's at the beginning of the sentence. So if ajran is put forward, then ajran is a nakira, right? So lahum is placed there. If it was al-ajra hasana, then okay, al-ajra al-hasana, then okay, right? But it's not. So that is why lahum is placed. Second one, ihtisas, means to make it khas, to make it exclusive, exclusively for whom? For them, especially for them. Not disbelievers who do good. It comes after, would include others. So if lahum comes after, it might not include the believers, because I mean it also might include disbelievers who do good, right? Who try to reform as they see it as a reformation, a way of doing things. But putting it in the middle, right, at the beginning, right, removes them, because that anna lahum comes after the fact that these are the believers. يبشر الذين يبشر المؤمنين يبشر المؤمنين, right? Those who do amal salih. Also, the payback is better than what they actually did. So this emphasizes that means all the various actions that they do, their reward is just immense. It is not commensurate with what they do, but it is much, much greater than what they did. Ajran hasana, a nasab from due to the anna, right? So it says anna, also because of anna, right? It becomes nasab, but then it also emphasizes makithina fihi abada. There are those who will be remaining in it forever. Makithina, dwellers in it forever. Dwellers are a better word here rather than remaining. I'm going to change it to dwellers because it refers to people who are dwelling in it, dwellers or abiders in it forever. So they're going to stay in heaven forever, dwellers in it forever. Makithina fihi abada, a reminder that this world is not forever, the next world is forever, right? What are the two criteria to be in this great reward, in the state of great reward, is to believe and to believe and to do amal salih. Now, it didn't mention about the next one, right? It mentions about abiding in it forever. Right? Of course, in the next world is forever, but those who do amal salih, they are in a state of happiness and joy, lots of rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, lots of mercies and rahmah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Makithi, to remain somewhere in anticipation of something. So anticipation of the eternity of paradise, where excitement will never cease. Joys and joys and joys, unlimited joys, right? Unrestrained joys, joys which are halal. Abada, time, place, to be in a nasab state. So because it is a time, right, it is nasab. It's talking about it. What is important is that makithina fihi, in it is referring to the ajran hasana. This great, beautiful, amazing reward. They are immersed in this great, beautiful reward, and it's going to be forever. So abadah in this world also, you have seen people who have got, you might know people who have been with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, their lives, right, trying their very best to seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They don't tire in their praying, they don't tire in their reading of the Quran, they gain great joys in helping people, in reading the Quran, in doing all kinds of amals. So they are abiding in it, in this great, great reward from Allah. This goodly reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَيُنذِرَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا اتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ وَلَدًا. And it wants, all right? It can mean it can mean he, right? Translators actually change. Let's look at what they say. And it wants here. So the it here would be referring to the Quran. If it's a he, then it refers to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because ya can be it or he. And you might see a translation which says it's a he, referring to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Alladhina, those qalu, they said, ittakhadallahu. Qalu ittakhadallah. Akhadha means to take. Allah is the one who takes. Waladan, a son. Allah takes a son. So Allah, you can see, is Rafa here. Rafa refers to the one who take here. And walad is the thing that is being taken, right? So that's why it is in its nasab, or the fathatain here. وَيُنذِرَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا اتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ وَلَدًا. وَيُنذِرَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا اتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ وَلَدًا. This is the second warning. And the first warning was to warn those who disbelieve, right? This is the second warning. More emphasis on warning, mentioned twice compared to the good news. So you have warning, right? And then liyundira ba'san shadidan. Liyundira ba'san shadidan. To warn people. The Quran is to warn people. Qayyiman liyundira ba'san shadidan. Right? Min ladunhu. Right? وَيُبَشِّرَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. And also to give good news. This is وَيُنذِرَ الَّذِينَ. Another warning. Yes, and another warning. الَّذِينَ قَالُوا اتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ وَلَدًا. Right? So two warnings, right? One is to warn them of this great punishment. The Quran warns them of this great punishment. And the other warning is to warn those people, right? Now, emphasizing on the people who said that Allah has taken a son. In between the two warnings, we have the happy news given to the believers who do good works or righteous deeds. I prefer to use the word righteous deed to good works. I've explained before why righteous. Some scholars have highlighted the importance of the use of the righteous deeds rather than good works because it can be misconstrued by many. This serves as a condition that ensures that faith should have practical evidence in real life, which means that when you believe in something, then you have to act on your belief. You can't just say, I believe, and not act on your belief. That is, it must be practiced. It must be shown in your akhlaq, in your ways of doing things. It is not confined to the theoretical principles that may be endlessly discussed without effect on practice. And people just discuss, and learn about Islam is this, Islam is that, Islam is all kinds of things, but they never practice. And that is not what it is all about. You must have strong belief, complete belief in Allah, and also you need to practice what you know of being a true believer in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There was mentioned a warning in the previous verse, yet because of the importance of the deviation of policies concerning the idea that Allah has taken a son, the warning has been repeated again in this verse. So it emphasized the reality is that this is rampant among the people of the book, among the Quraysh also, giving Allah a child, which indicates that Allah has a need, whereas Allah has no need whatsoever. Right? So that is a great, it's dishonoring Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? It is denouncing the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they are warned, don't ever give Allah a child. Regarding other verses of the Quran too, the accusation of taking son unto Allah had been counted a great slander, which was spread about among polytheists. So it is really, really sinful. It's really terrible. Subhanallah, whenever we negate, we denounce that act of ever giving a child to Allah subhanahu. No way Allah is having a child. Denounce it. So here they are warned against they are saying this again and again, that Allah has taken a son. The Christians spoke of the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost too. The Jews also considered Ezra as God's son. Polytheists thought of the angels as the daughters of God, or this belief adapts neither with reality nor with logic and wisdom. Look at the Christians' strong belief of Nabi Isa as the Son, as a Father, and the Trinity, right? The Holy Ghost, and whatever they call it. Ezra, what verses of the Quran which mentioned who Ezra was. He was a Jew who formulated the laws, who changed laws of God, of the Torah, and the Jews honored him as Son of God. And then, of course, we've got with Quraysh, right? Mushrik, who take the angels and the daughters of God and create lots of slander about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All these are mentioned in the Quran, and we have learned it, alhamdulillah. However, in this holy verse, the Quran has referred to one of the common deviations of the opponents of Islam. Among these opponents are the Christians, the Jews, and polytheists, where it says, وَيُنذِرَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا اتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ وَلَدًا, and it warns, or he warns those they say Allah has taken a son. As we remember, as we recall, this surah was revealed because of questions which were proposed by the people of the book. The Arabs went over to ask the people of the book, how can they confirm or denounce the Prophet as Rasul as a Prophet of Allah? Okay, ask them these questions. If he can't answer, then definitely he's not the Prophet of Allah. This verse warns both the Christians for the belief that the Messiah is Son of God, and the Jews for having the belief that Ezra is God's son, and polytheists what they consider the angels as God's daughters. All right. ما لهم به من علم ولا لآبائهم كبرت كلمة تخرج من أفواههم. Not, ma is not, it's a strong not. Not for them, of him, be he, of him. Some put it as it. That means this idea, concept that he has a son, right? Min ilmin, any knowledge. Min here is any. Min can be off from, but here is any. Any knowledge. Min is huruf jar, so ilmin goes into jar, sit with a kasratain there. Wala li abaihim, and not for their fathers. And la, right? Not for their fathers. The abaihim, li is for aba, is fathers. Him is their. Kaburat, kabir is big, really, really serious. Kaburat kalimatan taharuju min afwahim. Really serious. The word, really serious, a word, a kalima that comes out. Taharuju, it comes out. This is al-mudari, rafa instead. This is referring to the kalima, it comes out. Kaburat kalimatan taharuju. Akhraj, huruj, makhraj, and the place where it comes out of sounds. Taharuju min afwahihim, from their mouths. Afwahihim, from their mouths. Afwahihim, from their mouths. Afwahihim, from their mouths. Ma lahum bihi min ilmin wala li abaihim kaburat kalimatan takhruju min afwahihim iyaquluna illa kadhiba. Not, they say, not, in can be if. Usually it's if, but when there's illa, then it becomes a not. So not, they say, present future tense, right? Fi'il mudari, rafa, not. They keep on saying except illa kadhiban, a lie. Not they say, but a lie. Iyaquluna illa kadhiba. They have no knowledge of it, nor had they actually, this one is an it, you see? So it's of him. Him is Allah. You do no knowledge of Allah. This is knowledge of it. It is referring to the fact that Allah takes a son. Right? So it's a fact. Not nor have their fathers, a serious word comes out of their mouths. This is nothing but a lie. Ma lahum bihi min ilmin wala li abaihim. Ma is a refutation, and min is used to remove all doubts that they indeed have no knowledge. Definitely. Ma, not for them, especially for them, not especially for them. Ma lahum min ilmin, any knowledge at all. They don't have any knowledge whatsoever, right? And not their fathers. So ma is a more powerful negation than la. This ayah could be said in many ways. Laisa ilmun lahum. No, laisa is using of ma, use laisa. Laisa also means no, no knowledge for them. Or ma ilmu lahum, no knowledge for them. Or la ilmu lahum, no knowledge for them. But Allah used ma, chosen to, and lahum, brought forward, especially for them. Any knowledge. So there is really strong emphasis. These people who say Allah has taken a son, no way. Definitely, they have no knowledge whatsoever. The words lahum are placed closer to the strong negation of ma. This strengthens the negation against their claim. Bihi, regarding this claim against Allah, they have no knowledge whatsoever. Wala li'abaihim, and neither for their forefathers. And they always say, oh, our forefathers says this, our forefathers say this, our forefathers must be right. We honor our forefathers, so we must believe in whatever they do, we must follow what they do. But the la is used for forefathers indicate less emphasis, which means that la used for continuity of negation. Neither ma, they nor they. Right? Neither they nor. So it's ma is neither not they nor their forefathers. La. You start with ma and then continue the negation with la. La is also strong, but the ma is stronger. The la is not so stronger. But that is how we do it, right? The ma and then the la. Ma stronger negation for offspring as compared to la for previous people. This is because the forefathers did not have a messenger to refute their false beliefs. So the forefathers believe in there's a son of God, but they didn't have a messenger to clarify to them. But when the people of Rasulullah during Rasulullah, they have the messenger to explain to them, and yet they denounce and they say that Allah is a son, so they are even worse, right? Kaburat, terrible, terrible, kalimatan takhruju min afwahihim, the word that comes out from their mouths. Kaburat, how huge it is, how big it is. Right? Mubalagha means emphasized, hyperbolized by using it as a female there. A nasab, it needs a tamyiz, a distinction. The word itself is terrible, terrible, huge in terms of kalimatan, huge word, terrible, terrible, horrible things to say about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The kalam is speech, kalima is a single word. Kalimatan takhruju, that comes out. Kaburat is past, but takhruju is present. As it shows all the time. This is past tense and this is present tense. So this is Arabic structure when it combine them together, and Allah shows that forever these words are wrong words. Kaburat kalimatan takhruju min afwahihim. Allah means that they say it's so huge yet they persist in repeating this enormity. Afwa, fam, mouth, fam is mouth, right? That means from their mouths. Iyaquluna illa kadhiban, not they say but a lie, except a lie. In usually means if, but when it comes with word illa, it becomes not at all, definitely not. So in this ayah, we do not say except a lie. Balagha rhetoric, the tanwin in kadhiban shows magnanimity. They do not say huge except a huge lie. So this kadhiban, the lie is really, really a huge lie, right? Because it is a nakira here. That means it is just immense. It is non-specific. If it's an al, then it's specific. But if it's no al, then the evil they are saying is completely a great lie. Not they say, but emphasizing they don't know anything, they have no knowledge whatsoever, and they say this horrible thing with their mouth. Whatever they say is just a lie. Sound and rhythm of this verse is particularly significant in giving a true sense of the enormity those unbelievers utter. This is brought to its climax in the last sentence, which realizes the form of negation and limitation. Is for sure. In not ever this, whatever they say, except a great, great lie. All right, we're going to stop here before we go on to the reason for the revelation of the surah. All right. So, and then, mm, 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 mm. Enak kita berdoa. اللهم ارحمنا بالقرآن واجعله لنا إماما ونورا وهدى ورحمة اللهم ذكرنا منه ما نسينا وعلمنا منه ما جهلنا وارزقنا تلاوته آناء الليل وأطراف النهار واجعله لنا حجة يا رب العالمين اللهم استودعك ما علمتني فردده إلي وقت حاجتي إليه فلا تنسينيه يا رب العالمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ربنا انفعنا بما علمتنا ربي علمنا الذي ينفعنا ربي فقهنا وفقه أهلنا وقرابات لنا في ديننا مع أهل القدر أنثى وذكر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلى الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته